Computer. Okay, let's look at again. Let's look at the Earth's revolution around the sun and reconnect with the seasons and latitude. Latitude as a climate control. Can you see now? Okay.
Yes.
Let me just make it full screen so it's more visible. Okay, so I'll show you the Earth's profile. Just to recap, on what latitude is the sun directly above at this point? The sun is directly above a particular latitude. When I say directly above, I mean the insolation, Insolation. Insolation is at a vertical angle. What does a vertical angle mean? What's the value of that angle? Earth's surface insolation. I'll show it this way. What is the angle? This angle, what is it?
90 degrees. 90 degrees.
That's why we call it vertical. It's also called a right angle, correct? So it's vertical, right angle, or 90 degrees. So when you have insolation at 90 degrees angle, is the heating very intense or very subtle? Is the heating very intense or is it very gentle?
Intense.
Intense. Because that's where the sunlight is concentrated.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? When it's coming down at 90 degrees. So at this point, which latitude is getting sunlight at that 90-degree angle?
The
The equator. The equator. Remember to put your hand up because if two or three of you speak, I can't make out what you're saying and I don't know if you're giving me the right answer or the wrong answer. Yeah, just put your hand up. It takes a little extra time, but it helps. By the way, Advait, if you want to put your hand up, you'll have to put your left hand up. Yeah, all right. Um, okay, so what is the, I'm going to check this out. What is the nature, what is the name given to this equinox? As it says there, right? Okay. Now, when we say equinox, what does the word equinox mean? Dhruva, go
equal,
ahead.
equal day and night. Equal day and night.
Equal day and night. The word equinox itself means equal night. By implication, therefore, it is equal day and night. Yeah. Okay. Where do we have equal day and night on the day of the equinox? In March. Dhruva, go ahead. Who?
The equator.
Aha, that's one answer. Okay. Shyam, you were putting your hand up. Do you have a different answer or is the same answer? How about Advait?
Aren't there equal day and night at all parts of the world?
I could make out what is it. Sorry, you have to speak up a little bit more.
Equal day and night on all parts of the world.
All parts of the world. Yes, not just at the equator. All parts of the world. Do you understand why that is a correct answer? Okay.
Yes.
Sachin, are you with it? Any questions so far? Any of you? No questions? Okay. So I'm going to run the animation because uh, you guys haven't still quite fully understood this thing, I think. Okay. What is the latitude which is receiving 90 degrees sunlight at this stage?
23.5 degrees north or the Tropic of Cancer.
Tropic of Cancer. Okay. Uh, which is the latitude that is receiving zero sunlight?
Antarctic Circle.
Antarctic Circle. Okay. Actually, you could say, you could give the full answer as Antarctic Circle to South Pole. South Pole is the pole is also a latitude. Yeah. It is just that at the poles, at the 90-degree latitude or longitude, you have a point, you don't have a circle. As you go towards the equator, the circles become bigger and bigger. As you go from the equator to the pole, the circles become smaller and smaller and smaller until when you get to the pole, it is just a dot. Do you understand? Okay. Which pole has 24 hours sunlight at this point?
From the Arctic Circle and above.
Hand. Sam, go ahead.
Can you hear us now?
Now I can hear you. Speak up.
Circle to the North Pole. North Pole.
Arctic Circle to North Pole. North Pole. Okay. Which hemisphere has the? There are four hemispheres to Earth, as you know: Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, Eastern Hemisphere, and Western Hemisphere. Which of these hemispheres has the longest day?
Yeah, Northern Hemisphere.
Northern Hemisphere. Okay. Shortest day?
Southern Hemisphere. Southern Hemisphere.
Okay. What is happening, guys, in Cascade? Because you're not putting your hand up and you're simply speaking, Sachin doesn't get a chance to speak. Yeah. So, because we are distributed in more than one location, it's good for you to put your hand up so that if Sachin also puts his hand up, he also gets a chance to speak. All right. Okay. Now, in the northern hemisphere, what is the name of the season?
Summer,
Advait?
summer solstice.
No, it's not summer solstice. What is the name of the season?
Summer.
Summer. What's the name of the season in the southern hemisphere? Sachin, go ahead.
Winter.
Winter. What's the season in the eastern hemisphere? Doesn't matter, no? Only north and south. East and west, it doesn't matter. Because they are not climate controls. Longitudes are not climate controls. So the variation is not between east and west, it's only between north and south. You understand? All right. So let's continue. We are back to the equinox. We have discussed all the equinox and so forth. This September equinox, what is it called in the northern hemisphere? September. What is it called in the northern hemisphere?
Autumn.
Say it again. Autumnal equinox. Autumn equinox or autumnal. For the southern hemisphere, it would be the. Go ahead, Advait.
Southern Hemisphere is the spring equinox.
Spring equinox, also known as the vernal, V-A-R-N-A-L, vernal equinox. Okay, so have this vocabulary. Rather than using the same word all the time, you can have a little bit of variety. You can call it vernal equinox, spring equinox, and that reverses. So if you go back to March, which equinox does the northern hemisphere have in March?
Equinox. Spring equinox. Spring equinox.
So the reason we don't say spring and autumnal equinox is because then you have to also say which hemisphere it is in. Right? So if you say September equinox, it's clear. There is less ambiguity that you have with fewer number of words, you can convey the information. You understand? All right. Okay. Which is the latitude receiving zero, and I should say zero, the least amount of sunlight. Sam, go ahead.
Arctic Circle.
Arctic Circle. Good. The North Pole has what? 24 hours of what?
Darkness.
Darkness. Which latitude is getting the maximum sunlight? Dhruva?
The Antarctic Circle and below. Tropic of Capricorn.
Tropic of Capricorn. I should get myself a buzzer. Give a wrong answer, please. All right. Sachin, feel free to jump in and participate. Don't just sit there passively like that. I observed from the beginning you're not participating very much. You need to change that. Don't worry about answers being right or wrong. That's all not an issue at all. But you should participate more. Just put your hand up. All right. If you were at the South Pole at this point, and if you're fasting for Ramadan, how long would you be fasting at the South Pole? Sham?
24 hours. Sure.
Advait, sorry, Advait. Go ahead.
24 hours.
Speak again.
24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
Basically, you drop dead. You won't be able to eat at all, no? Because there is no sun down at all. There's always sun up. So, if you were in Australia and you're just about ready for Christmas, Santa Claus coming there? Is Santa Claus coming there to Australia?
No.
Why not?
Because it's summer in Australia.
Put your hand up. Very important practice. Sham, go ahead.
Because it's summer in Australia.
So, Sham, continue. Give me, Sham, always answer in complete sentences so that the ideas are complete. Okay, go ahead.
So it's summer in Australia, so Santa will not come there because it will be too hot.
Yeah, he doesn't have much of a knowledge of geography, even though he claims to go all over the world and deliver toys to so-called good kids. He's not geographically very smart, that guy. Yeah, if he goes to Australia, he can't go in a sled because the reindeer will die, and he'll also die. So he'll have to go in maybe maximum t-shirt and shorts. That's it. Any more than that, he'll die of heat stroke, and he has to wear a hat, of course, huge big hat. Right? So Santa Claus is geographically not very smart in that sense. Okay. So now do you understand how latitude plays a role in determining the kind of climate places have?
Yes, yes.
Okay. But we also talked about another climate control, that is the winds and pressure. So let's take a look at winds and pressure now. All right. Okay. Let me just change. Okay. I told you about temperature and pressure in connection with wind. What kind of relationship is that? Temperature and pressure have a particular kind of relationship. When the temperature increases, the pressure decreases. What do we call that kind of relationship? Do you remember? Inverse relationship. It's upside down. So if the temperature goes up, the pressure decreases. Do you understand why the pressure decreases? Hand has to go up first.
Because
That's right, go ahead.
because the hair is hot.
The air is what?
Because the air is hotter.
It's warmed up. It warms up.
Yeah.
And then?
So the air becomes lighter.
Yeah, it expands and rises.
Yeah.
Both happen at the same time. It expands. So this amount of air that was pushing down on Earth now becomes bigger and also rises, which means the weight of that column of air on Earth's surface is reduced, which is what we mean when we say the pressure is reduced. Do you understand? So as the temperature increases, the pressure decreases. As the temperature decreases, what happens to the pressure?
Pressure increases.
I heard three voices together. One hand should go up and then I should hear a voice. Okay. Sachin, go ahead.
It increases.
It increases. Do you understand why that happens? Because as the temperature decreases, the air molecules become sluggish. This is kind of a blur. When they're heated up, they go completely freaked out. When it becomes cold, they just go blur, and they all just kind of collapse on each other and start just dropping off. When they drop down, they're pushing more. As they push more, the pressure is higher. You understand? So these air molecules get hyper excited sometimes. Sometimes they just go blur. And when they go blur, they just come down. And that is when the pressure increases. Yeah, we'll see examples of how that works in due course. Okay. So one, the temperature and pressure are inversely related in that when the temperature goes up, the pressure goes down. When the temperature goes down, the pressure goes up. It's much clear, right? Okay. The second thing is when you have low pressure in a place, as the air rises, the pressure where the air was, so if this is Earth's surface and the air here is now heated and it's rising, what is happening to the pressure here? It is decreasing. Correct? So when I have a straw to have a drink, what do? I create a low pressure in my mouth so that the liquid in the glass or bottle comes up through the straw into my mouth. That's how it's happening. We call it sucking on a straw. We create a low pressure in the mouth and we don't let air come through the mouth. So that's why we put our lips on the straw. So when we put our lips on the straw and then we do what we call sucking, we are creating a low pressure in our mouth. And because the pressure outside is greater than the pressure inside, the liquid travels through the straw and comes to our mouth. So next time you drink anything using a straw, just observe that. So the second point to understand is air always moves from areas of higher pressure to areas of lower pressure. Do you understand? Basically, it is the idea of a partial vacuum that is created when there is low pressure. So if the air, this is Earth's surface or even ocean surface and it's warm, this air that is touching it gets heated, it expands and rises. As it rises, the pressure at the surface becomes less. Over here, if there is higher pressure, as in air is coming down like this, it moves towards the lower pressure area. You understand now? Lower pressure, higher pressure, air moves from higher pressure to lower pressure. Do you all follow that?
Yes.
That's it? All right. Okay, good. But the interesting thing is, when this air rises, let's look at the air that is rising. It can't keep rising indefinitely. It can go only up to a point because Earth's gravity is also pulling it back. It can only go up to a certain height. By the time it gets there, it cools down. When it cools down, it becomes again blur. Just think of cold air as blur. So it goes there and cools down. It becomes heavy, but it can't come back this way because more and more air is coming and pushing it up. So the only way that air can come down is go that way and this way. It cannot come vertically down. That is what we will see right now in this animation. Okay. All right. Don't worry about the names of the cells and all that. Just observe this. Notice at the equator, as the heating occurs, air rises. As it cools down, it can't come back the same way. It is pushed to the two opposite directions. That is because partly the Earth is rotating also. And wherever the letter L is shown, it is a low pressure area. Wherever the letter H is shown, it is a high pressure area. Okay. Now, does it make sense that the high pressure areas are areas where the air is coming down towards Earth's surface? Because that's when it weighs a lot more. Remember, pressure is basically the weight of the column of air on 1 square unit of surface on Earth. Do you understand how the low pressure and high pressure are working at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you notice also that these along what this is the equator, right? Now, all along the equator, it is low pressure. So where is the sun directly positioned right now? Where is the sun's position? Which latitude? So the heating is occurring here, which is what is causing the low pressure. Air is rising up. As it rises up, it cools down, but it can't come back down the same way. So it goes around and comes back down. So the low pressure is here, which means the temperature is high. Where is the sun?
Yes.
Where is the sun? Which latitude is the sun on?
Equator.
Yeah, Sham, go ahead.
It's on the equator. The
It's
sun.
on the equator. Also, do you notice for the low pressure area, they are showing it like a white cloud kind of thing. Those are actually clouds. Why are those clouds showing there?
It cools
Dhruva,
down while in the cloud.
say it again.
Cools down while in the cloud.
Say it more loudly.
It cools down while it goes through the cloud.
Right, but what cools down? See, this is why you guys should pay a lot of attention to English language classes that you're taking. I hope you're taking some English language classes. You can't simply say it, because I don't know what it refers to. Do you understand? It has to be clearly a noun. Once you have used the noun, then you can call it it. So what is cooling down? You have to be very specific about it.
The hot air is cooling down while it's going through the cloud.
What is cooling down?
The hot air.
Hot air is cooling down. Why should it become cloud just because it's hot air cooling down? Tom?
When the hot air goes up, some of the it carries water vapor with it.
It carries water vapor, and as the air goes higher and higher, temperature falls, water vapor condenses into droplets.
And then when the
Those
droplets,
droplets are what we see as clouds. You understand, Dhruva? Did you see that now? You understand that? Okay. Notice also, what we are seeing in this animation is it's like a tube that circles Earth, two tubes.
Sachin,
And
not
we have just cut, yeah.
Sachin, not Rohit. You said Sachin. You said Rohit. You said Rohit.
Else, Rohit.
Oh, notice. Okay, sorry.
What and all you're telling her? Nice try. So this is like a tube. It circles Earth, right? And what they've done is they've cut through that to show us what is going on inside. This structure is called a Hadley cell because it was first described by a meteorologist called Hadley, something Hadley. Do you understand now? But notice that this air that's coming down doesn't go neatly like that because Earth is rotating at a high speed, which means the air that's coming down gets moved to a side. We'll see that in due course. So at the equatorial latitude, this is what is going on. But remember also that this is a simple ideal figure that we are using just to understand how it works. In nature, it is not this simple. We will see that also shortly in due course. Notice here that it comes down at just approximately the Tropic of Cancer and approximately the Tropic of Capricorn. So all along these two latitudes, you have high pressure. So do you understand now where the sun is, where the maximum heating is, and therefore why the pressures are distributed this way? Do you understand all of that? And these clouds that we see here, you can actually see those in the satellite images. You can actually see that. The water vapor, because a lot of it is ocean. Enormous amounts of ocean water is being evaporated. Shall we go to the next level then? Do any of you have any questions? Well, you play with this at home. If you have questions, you can always ask later also, no problem. So This is at the equator. Mid-latitude, these are the mid-latitudes. Do you see now? This air that is coming down in the northern hemisphere, it splits into winds going in this northeast direction, as in coming from the northeast, and here going from the west, therefore called westerlies. So as they come down on this latitude, again they split into two. But when they split into two, they don't go directly opposite, they get deflected. Full Bharatanatyam going on, right? So in the upper latitudes, around the Tropic of Cancer, you will see northeast winds coming towards the equator, westerly winds going towards the North Pole. In the southern hemisphere, you have southeast trade winds coming to the equator and westerlies going to the pole, towards the pole. This is because of Earth's rotation. There's also a force, it's called the Coriolis effect. We will not go into all those details because it's too much for you guys. Right now, we'll leave it at this much detail. This is enough. So as air descends on the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, both those latitudes have high pressure, and the air, as it descends, splits into two branches, one going towards the pole, one coming towards the equator. The one coming towards the equator gets deflected to the, it comes from the northeast in the northern hemisphere and southeast in the southern hemisphere. Okay. Some people say northeast winds get deflected to the left. That's a very vague thing to say. Directions are better to use in geography. So, and remember, winds are named by the direction from which they come. So if the wind is coming from the northeast, we say these are northeast winds. They are called northeast trade winds because a lot of the sailing ships in olden times used to use those to catch the winds and sail towards their destination. Okay. Do you see now how these two processes are happening? How temperature, latitude, and the pressure, how these three are related. Now we will see another thing here called the ITCZ. ITCZ. Let me give you in your chat window, if I can find it. In your chat window, I'll type the can you see that? ITCZ refers to the Intertropical Convergence Zone. This is extremely important for us to know. Intertropical. So this is the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. Intertropical winds coming from both the tropics are converging. They are meeting. Zone means area. So this is the area where the winds coming from the northeast, winds coming from the southeast are both meeting. Therefore, this is called the intertropical convergence. So why are these winds coming this way? Because this area is low pressure. Why is this area low pressure? Because the sun is above this latitude. Do you understand now? And this ITCZ is not a simple straight line. It waves about. Why it waves about, we'll see later. Do you understand so far? Any questions? And remember, you don't have to ask questions immediately. Sometimes questions occur to you later on when you when you're actually playing with the animation. Whenever any questions occur to you, try and write them down so that you can ask me next time when we meet. Okay? All right. Now, if I go to the higher latitudes, notice what is happening. There is a high pressure at the North Pole because it's very cold. Very cold. High pressure from the North Pole, and these winds begin to move towards this low pressure. This is called the circumpolar low pressure belt. Don't worry about the name. just understand that there is a low pressure belt here. Now, because this is low pressure, this is high pressure, these winds the low pressure. This is high pressure, therefore these winds move towards this low pressure. But because they're in the northern hemisphere, they get deflected and they become winds coming from the east. Same thing happens in the south. You have a, oh, Sachin, below Sachin. Sachin, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay, good. So I was just saying before you got cut off, here is the pressure, low pressure belt, and that low pressure belt, because it's low pressure, high pressure winds from the pole flow towards this. These westerlies are also flowing towards that. Likewise, in the southern hemisphere, there is a low pressure belt near close to the pole. These westerlies are coming towards this. So are the high pressure easterlies coming from the south pole to the uh, low pressure area. And the deflection is caused by earth rotation. Okay. What I would like you to do is to spend a lot of time with this, keep on looking at it, understand, trace each of those with your finger, and that will help you remember which way the winds are blowing. But more importantly, not just memorizing which way the winds blow, you need to understand why the winds blow that way. It's to do with temperature, pressure, and Earth's rotation. All of these are connected to latitude, which is in turn connected to the sun's position. You understand? So next week, if I ask you, what did you, next session, if I ask you, why are these westerlies and polar easterlies going towards the same area, you should be able to tell me why. Okay, all right. So now we'll go to the final level. This is very interesting. You see this polar front jet stream. This is very high altitude winds that are moving at extremely high speeds. Remember, winds move in different directions at different altitudes. We will see that in another animation shortly, real time, as it's happening right now. So in high altitude, the winds get deflected differently because they're not close to the Earth's surface, and Earth's surface doesn't drag the wind. But notice, this is very interesting. This polar front jet stream that goes west to east, and polar front jet stream in the south that also goes from west to east. The importance of this is if you're traveling in a jet aircraft, a large jet aircraft which can go to such altitudes, what the pilots try to do is they try to get into this jet stream. If that happens, there's what is called a tailwind. The wind from behind is pushing the aircraft forward, and so the aircraft is able to move faster using less fuel, and therefore cutting down the amount of time of travel that it takes. It's not always possible to do that, but when they're able to do that, they can save on fuel, which means the profit for the airlines is bigger. Less money spent on fuel, more number of passengers delivered, the same amount of ticket price, but they don't have to spend as much on fuel, and the savings are quite significant. So, which is why I have often heard they had this happen. Had this happen when the captain of the flight gets on the PA system on the tannoy and says, "We have got a good tailwind, which will take us to our destination 15 minutes early or 20 minutes early." That's a lot of fuel saving there. So these kinds of understanding of winds, or even the jet stream, the subtropical jet stream, that is also useful in the same way. If you're traveling from west to east, if you're traveling from east to west, you don't want to go there because the wind is coming against you. That takes more fuel, more time, more energy to get through it. You understand how these things matter, not just in terms of weather, but also in terms of saving costs for airline travel. It also helps us understand how pollution of the atmosphere moves. They have done some research, I read some years ago, that they tagged some carbon dioxide molecules released over Los Angeles. And you can actually apparently tag molecules by using some chemical mechanisms. 3 days later, they found the same carbon dioxide molecules over the Himalaya. So this brings us to another issue. One is the weather and climate issue, which is what we are focusing on. But remember that when we pollute the atmosphere, the pollution may happen in one location, but its effects can be felt throughout the world because air keeps moving. So this is called on-site pollution and off-site effects. So we should be, these are all reasons that we all need to work together to reduce atmospheric pollution, to reduce greenhouse gases and all of that. Okay? So this one animation that I've given you today, I want you to spend a lot of time thinking about it while you're observing what is going on. Don't just stare at it, observe it. And you can always turn all the labels off. Without the labels, you can see how the winds are moving. If you turn the labels on, it gives you the names of the latitudes and so on. You can clear all the animations and start one at a time, one at a time. And then see how the air is moving. Remember, the one clear condition is air moves from higher pressure to lower pressure. So in this, what is happening is, in this situation, the low pressure is here and the high pressure is there. It comes back towards the low pressure area, but when it comes to the low pressure area, because of the heat, it gets heated and rises up. It can't go back down the same way. It's like being in a queue. I don't know, have any of you been to Tirupati? If you have gone to Tirupati, put your hand up. Dhruva, you have gone. Sachin has gone. You will notice that in Tirupati, once you get in the queue for darshana, you cannot go back. You only can go forward. There's no space for you to go back. 5 million people are behind you, pushing you forward. Same thing here. You can only go from high pressure to low pressure. You cannot go back the other way because there's still a lot of pushing going on. I think of this as being the Tirupati formation, line formation. Okay, so spend some time with this over the next few days. Understand how this works, so that next time when we meet, when I ask you how does, if I ask you a specific question, you're able to answer it for me. Okay, Sachin, be sure when you download the software, let me know if you're able to or not able to play the animation. Either way, send me an email, let me know. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? So today we have looked at how wind patterns occur relating to sun's position, latitude, uh, temperature, and pressure, and Earth's rotation. 5 things we have seen how the winds behave. And we have also, I have also just mentioned to you, which I'll show you just now, that wind travels in different directions at different altitudes. So winds are not going like this only, they're also going this way and that way. So it's a 3-dimensional movement, just like the waves in an ocean. Air also moves in that way. And the temperature varies at different altitudes. So we say low pressure here, but somewhere here there could be a low pressure at a higher altitude. So these winds might be converging there. So this kind of variation happens. It's very complex. And when we see how air actually moves, we see that different altitudes, the air is moving up or down, east or west. All of these things are happening. A lot of mixing is going on, which is the precise reason that if we pollute the air in one location, the pollutant that we put out into the atmosphere moves in all over the place. Okay, all right. I'll quickly show you this other animation that is very, very useful for you to look at. Give me a moment. No, yeah. So I'll start with this one animation that I'll show you. This link I have already sent you, I think. I sent you 2 links. One of 2 links. Either will work. Both of them show the same thing. Are you able to see? Hang on. Are you able to see all these little lines that are moving? small arrows that are moving around, white. Yeah, cascade. Can you guys see it?
Is that the wind movement?
Yeah. Wind movement, very much. It's the wind movement. Yeah, this is wind. I'll tell you more about this. Sachin, are you able to make out the small white lines that are moving? I don't know what the quality is that you are seeing on your screen. That's why I have to keep asking. You will notice, for example, here, do you see how the wind is moving in a circle here and then coming down this way and then going towards the land? And here it's moving along the Bay of Bengal, is going towards the land. And all of the circulations is happening. This is at a height of 5 centimeters above Earth's surface. Okay, just keep focus on the on the Arabian Sea, and as I increase the altitude, notice how the wind behavior seems to appears to change. Okay, and here you have all sorts of controls. Play with it. That's the only way. Okay, so now I'm going to increase the altitude to 2. This is 5 centimeters. I'll go to 2 meters above ground. Observe the Arabian Sea. Not much change. Same movement, right? Okay. 2 meters above ground. Now I'll go to 500 meters above the ground. Not much change. Yeah. So look at the Arabian Sea and look at Gujarat also. That will be very useful to look at. 500 meters. Let me go to 1,000 meters. See, this flow is much stronger now. Lot more movement. Look at what happened to the Arabian Sea movement. The pattern is different. Look at this very strong movement from the Himalaya towards China, Tibet and China. Look at this movement here from the northeast coming this way. And it's all coming here and then it's going round and round. If the wind is coming in this direction, what kind of pressure is at this area? Is it high pressure or low pressure?
Low pressure.
How many of you say low pressure? Put your hands up. All three of you wrong. Because air moves from high pressure to low pressure.
Low pressure.
Is moving in this direction, therefore this is high pressure, this is low pressure. So let us look at the temperature in the high pressure area. So you have range is about 19, 20, 21 degrees Celsius, whereas here it's 20 degrees Celsius and the wind is being carried. Okay, so the wind moves from high pressure area, Himalaya, colder, towards the low pressure area, land, lower level land. Do you see that? Do you see here how the wind is circulating almost like it's a cyclone? The Bay of Bengal is still warm, see 21 degrees Celsius generally, whereas here you come to different kinds of temperatures. If the land cools down more than the sea, which it does, then the lower pressure on the sea will show us cyclones. So let's go to 5,500 meters altitude and let us see what it looks like. Very different, no? So different compared to what we started off with. So if you're traveling from west to east by aircraft, it would make a lot of sense to catch these winds because they will push you along the east, towards the east. You can save fuel. If you're traveling, let us say from Singapore to Chennai, it would be sensible to fly at this altitude so that those winds can carry you to Chennai more quickly. Do you see how it happens? Sorry?
Temperature is very different.
Yeah, it's very different. As the altitude goes up, temperature goes down. So these are all a lot of things that you have to observe in correlation with each other. So I strongly recommend, especially the three of you in Cascade, work on this together with Vidyanti if you can. Okay, all right. Let's go to an even higher altitude. Let's go to 30,000 meters. Temperature is very low.
-40 degrees.
Minus 45. more than minus 40, less than minus 40. Look at which way the winds are moving. Completely different directions. So at different altitudes, temperatures are different, therefore pressures are different, therefore the wind movements are different. And friction with Earth's surface also is different. The closer you are to the ground, the more friction you have with the ground. Do you see how the atmosphere is circulating in 3 dimensions? This way, and this, and that way. So you have all of this mixing going on. Full Bharatanatyam. So I'll put this in the chat window. A moment. So note this address down. This is the site I'm showing you right now. You can also check out. Both of them show pretty much the same information. And you can look at this for any part of the world. See this? You look at it for any part of the world. Look at this. As you go towards the North Pole. Do you see that? Do you see these circulations? How amazing they are. So at this zoom level, explore different altitudes. Then zoom into any particular area that you like, the South Asian region, or any particular country that you like. And check out how at different altitudes, which way the winds are moving. The closer you get to the surface, the more the effect of Earth's surface will be seen. Got it? Okay. So for next time, check out both windy.com and ventusky.com. Both I've given the links in the chat window. Check out both of them. Just play with it. Click on that kind of thing and figure it out. So next time when we meet, you should be able to explain things to me. Right? Okay. I'll stop sharing the screen now. All right, let's stop at that point for today. We'll continue next time. I won't be sending you any assignments this week. There's no need for any assignments. The other assignments that you have done, you have shared it with Vidya, so you're done with that. Okay. See you all next week. Sachin, just stick around. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
You.